In a world that keeps telling us to chase success, fame, money, and approval, we run faster and faster trying to hold the entire world in our hands. We are told that happiness is somewhere out there, in bigger dreams, louder applause, and endless achievements. But the truth, the quiet, honest truth, is very different. Because sometimes, after all the noise fades, after the crowd disappears, after the victories and failures settle into silence, a person realizes something simple and deeply human. The world is big, and strangely too empty. You see, love has a strange way of changing our priorities. It teaches us that the heart does not measure life the way the world does. The world counts numbers, trophies, and followers, but the heart counts moments, warmth, and the presence of one soul who truly understands you. And that's when a man finally understands something powerful. He doesn't need the whole world standing beside him. He just needs one person who stays when life becomes difficult. One person who believes in him when he forgets how to believe in him, when he forgets how to believe in himself. One person whose presence makes even the quietest moments feel meaningful. Because real love doesn't ask for the world. Real love says something much simpler and much deeper. I don't need the world, I just need you. Sometimes life teaches you things in the quietest moments, not in the noise of crowds, not in the applause of people who cheer for a moment and disappear the next day, but in the silence that comes when the world slows down and your heart finally begins to speak honestly. For a long time, I believed what many people believe. I thought life was about chasing the world, about proving something, about becoming someone important enough that the world would look at you and say, you made it. And like many people, I ran after that idea without stopping to ask myself if it was really what my heart wanted. The world is very convincing when it tells you what matters. It tells you that you need success, recognition, admiration. It tells you that happiness lives somewhere in the distance, waiting behind the next achievement or the next big victory. And when you listen to those voices long enough, you start believing that the more you gain from the world, the more complete you will feel inside. But something strange happens along the way. Even when the world gives you things, even when doors open and opportunities appear, there can still be a quiet emptiness sitting somewhere deep inside your chest. It's the kind of emptiness that success can't fill and noise can't hide. You wake up some days and realize that the world can be very loud, but also very lonely. And it's in those moments that your heart begins asking a different question. Not how much can I achieve, not how far can I go, but something much more honest. Who is truly here with me? Because the truth is, the world is full of people who come and go. They celebrate you when things are bright, when the lights are shining and everything looks perfect from the outside. But when the storms arrive, when the nights grow quiet and heavy, you begin to notice how quickly the crowd fades away. And that's when you begin to understand the real value of one person who stays. One person who doesn't measure your worth by what you accomplish. One person who doesn't disappear when the excitement fades. One person who looks at you not as the world sees you, but as your heart truly is. There is something powerful about being seen by someone who understands your silence, someone who doesn't need explanations for every feeling, someone who can sit beside you in a quiet room and somehow make that silence feel safe instead of empty. Because love, real love, is not loud the way the world is loud. It doesn't scream for attention. It doesn't try to compete with the chaos outside. Real love is quiet. It's the gentle presence that stays when everything else fades. It's the hand that reaches for yours without asking for anything in return. It's the look in someone's eyes that tells you they understand pieces of your heart you've never been able to explain to anyone else. For many years, I thought strength meant standing alone. I thought it meant building walls high enough that nothing could touch you, that no disappointment could reach you. But life has a way of humbling those beliefs, because strength is not always about standing alone. Sometimes strength is about allowing someone to stand beside you, allowing someone to see your fears, your doubts, the fragile parts of you that the world never gets to see. The world often celebrates independence, and there is beauty in being able to walk your own path. But there is also something deeply human about realizing that some journeys are not meant to be walked completely alone. Some paths become meaningful only when someone is walking them with you. You start noticing it in the smallest moments, the quiet conversations that stretch late into the night, the comfortable silence when words are no longer necessary, the simple way someone's presence can change the entire atmosphere of a room. And suddenly the world outside begins to feel a little less important because the world is vast, complicated, and endlessly demanding. It always wants more from you, more effort, more success, more proof that you belong in its endless race. But love is different. Love doesn't demand that you prove your worth. Love doesn't measure you against anyone else. Love simply sees you, not the version of you that the world expects, but the version of you that exists underneath the noise. And when someone truly sees that part of you, something inside your heart begins to relax in a way you didn't know was possible. You stop trying to perform. You stop trying to impress. You stop trying to be everything the world told you that you should be. Because for the first time, being yourself feels like enough. That is a rare kind of peace. And once you experience that kind of connection with another human being, the world begins to look very different. The things that once seemed so important start losing their weight. The endless competition, the comparisons, the pressure to keep running faster than everyone else. You realize that none of those things can replace the feeling of being truly understood by someone who cares about you deeply. There is something sacred about knowing that somewhere in this enormous world, there is a person who thinks about you not because they have to, but because their heart naturally returns to you. Someone who remembers the small details. Someone who remembers the small details. The way you laugh when something surprises you. The way your voice softens when you talk about something you love. The way your eyes change when you're lost in thought. These are the things the world never notices, but someone who loves you notices them all. And slowly, almost without realizing it, your definition of happiness begins to change. Happiness is no longer the loud celebration that the world advertises. It becomes quieter, simpler, more honest. It becomes the warmth of sitting beside someone who understands your heart without asking you to explain every piece of it. It becomes the comfort of knowing that even when life becomes uncertain, even when the future looks unclear, you are not facing it alone. Because when someone truly loves you, their presence becomes a kind of shelter. Not a cage that limits you, but a safe place where you can rest your heart after facing the chaos of the world. And that shelter becomes more valuable than any achievement the world could offer. People often say that you should want the world, that you should dream big enough to hold everything in your hands. But the older you become, the more you start to realize something simple. Holding the world means very little if your heart still feels empty. You can stand in the center of everything the world offers and still feel alone. But when you have someone who truly understands you, the world no longer needs to feel so large, because suddenly, the most meaningful part of your life is not somewhere far away. It's right there beside you. It's in the quiet smile that appears when your eyes meet. It's in the warmth of a hand gently holding yours. It's in the calm feeling that spreads through your chest when you realize that someone chooses you, not because they have to, but because their heart wants to. And that kind of love changes everything. It changes the way you see yourself. It changes the way you face difficulties. It even negates the way you look at the world. Because when someone believes in you with that kind of sincerity, it becomes easier to believe in yourself. When someone sees beauty in your imperfections, it becomes easier to accept the parts of yourself you once tried to hide. And slowly, the world loses its power to define your worth, because your worth is no longer measured by applause. It is measured by the quiet, steady love that exists between two hearts that chose each other in a complicated world. The truth is, the world is full of temporary things. Trends change, fame fades, Success moves from one person to another like shifting wind, but love, when it is real, has a different kind of strength. It stays, not because life is always easy, but because two people decide that their connection is worth protecting even when the world becomes difficult. And when you find someone like that, someone who stands beside you, not just during the bright days, but also through the darker nights, you begin to realize something deeply important. You begin to realize that maybe the world was never what you were searching for. Maybe the world was simply the path that eventually led you to the person who makes everything else feel less important. Because in the end, what the heart truly wants is not endless attention. It doesn't want the entire world standing in front of it. The heart wants something much simpler. It wants someone who stays, someone who listens, someone who cares enough to hold your hand through the unpredictable journey of life without asking where the road will end. And when you find that kind of presence, something quiet but powerful begins to grow inside your soul. A sense of gratitude, a sense of peace, a sense of belonging that no achievement could ever replace. Because the world might offer you many things, but none of those things will ever feel as meaningful as the complete truth of knowing that somewhere in the middle of this enormous and complicated world, there is one person whose heart beats a little stronger when they think about you. There is a moment in life when a person begins to understand the difference between having the world and having someone who truly cares about you. At first, that difference is not very clear. When we are younger, we believe that the world itself is the prize. We believe that the more we gain from it, the more complete we will feel. The world tells us that happiness is found in things that can be counted: achievements, recognition, wealth, status. It teaches us that the louder the applause, the more meaningful our life must be. And for a while, we chase that idea with everything we have. But life has a quiet way of revealing deeper truths, because the world can give you many things, yet still leave your heart searching for something it cannot offer. You may stand in a room full of people who admire you and still feel a strange loneliness inside your chest. You may accomplish things that once felt impossible and still go home at night feeling like something important is missing. That feeling is not weakness. It is simply the heart reminding you that it was never designed to be fulfilled by the world alone. The heart does not measure life the way the world does. The world measures success by numbers, by how many people know your name, by how many doors open for you, by how many victories you collect along the way. But the heart measures life in moments that cannot be counted: moments of connection, moments of warmth, moments when another human being looks at you in a way that says, "You matter to me, not because of what you have done, but because of who you are." And when you experience that kind of connection, something inside you begins to shift. Suddenly, the things you once believed were essential start losing their importance, because you realize that 1,000 admirers cannot replace one person who truly understands you. A million voices cheering your name cannot replace the quiet comfort of someone who stays beside you when the world grows silent. The truth is, admiration is easy. People admire what shines. They admire what looks successful. They admire the version of you that appears confident and strong. But love, real love, is something very different. Real love sees beyond the shining surface. It sees the fears you rarely talk about. It sees the doubts that sometimes keep you awake at night. It sees the parts of your story that the world never notices. And instead of walking away from those things, it stays. That kind of presence is rare, because most people are comfortable loving the bright parts of someone's life, but very few are willing to hold space for the quiet struggles that exist beneath the surface. And yet, those quiet struggles are where true connection begins. When someone sits beside you during moments when you are not at your strongest, when they listen without judgment, when they offer understanding instead of criticism, something powerful begins to grow between two hearts: trust. And trust is one of the most valuable things a person can ever experience, because trust allows you to be honest. Because trust allows you to be honest not the polished version of honesty that the world prefers, but the kind of honesty that reveals who you truly are, the kind that says, "This is me, imperfect, uncertain, still learning." And when someone responds to that honesty with acceptance instead of rejection, it creates a bond that the world cannot compete with. The world will always be unpredictable. It will lift you up one moment and challenge you the next. It will celebrate you when things are going well and question you when they are not. But the presence of someone who genuinely cares about you remains steady even when everything else feels uncertain. That steadiness becomes a quiet source of strength because life is not always easy. There will be days when the path ahead feels heavy, days when the future seems unclear, days when the world feels overwhelming. And during those moments, the difference between having the world and having someone who truly cares becomes very clear. The world might watch your struggles from a distance, but someone who loves you will sit beside you in the middle of them. They won't always have perfect answers. They won't always know exactly what to say, but their presence will remind you that you are not facing life alone. And sometimes that reminder is more powerful than any solution because human beings were never meant to carry everything by themselves. We are stronger when we share the weight of life with someone who cares about our journey, someone who celebrates our victories with genuine happiness. Wife, someone who listens to our fears without trying to dismiss them, someone who believes in us during moments when our own confidence begins to fade. That belief is powerful. When another person truly believes in you, it becomes easier to believe in yourself. Their faith in your strength becomes a mirror that reflects the courage you sometimes forget you have, and slowly, that shared strength begins to shape the way you move through the world. You no longer feel like you must face every challenge alone. You no longer feel like your worth depends on how perfectly you perform, because you know that somewhere, someone values you not for your perfection, but for your humanity. That kind of love is not loud. It does not demand attention. It does not compete with the noise of the world. It lives quietly in everyday moments, in the way someone remembers the small things about you, the way they notice when your voice sounds tired, the way they offer a simple smile that somehow makes a difficult day feel lighter. These gestures may seem small to the outside world, but to the heart, they mean everything because they carry a message that words cannot always express. The message that says, "You are not invisible to me." In a world where people often feel overlooked, misunderstood, or forgotten, that message becomes incredibly powerful. It reminds us that our lives are seen, that our feelings matter, that our presence makes a difference to someone else. And when you realize that there is a person in this world who feels that way about you, something inside your heart begins to soften. You stop feeling the need to prove yourself constantly. You stop chasing approval from people who barely understand your story because you already have something far more meaningful. You have someone who knows you deeply and chooses to stay. That choice matters every day in small, quiet ways. Two people choose whether they will continue walking through life together, not because they are forced to, but because their hearts recognize something valuable in one another, a kind of understanding, a kind of comfort, a kind of peace that is difficult to find anywhere else. And that peace becomes more valuable than anything the world can offer. Because the world can give you excitement, it can give you opportunities, it can give you moments of recognition, but peace, true emotional peace, often comes from knowing that someone cares about you beyond the surface of things, someone who sees your soul instead of your image, someone who listens to your heart instead of the stories the world tells about you. That kind of connection transforms ordinary moments into meaningful memories. A quiet walk together becomes something special. A simple conversation becomes something memorable. Even silence becomes something comforting rather than empty. Because when two hearts truly understand each other, silence is no longer a distance. It becomes a space where both people feel safe simply being themselves. And that safety is something the world rarely provides. The world often demands that we constantly perform, that we constantly prove our value, but love allows us to rest from that performance. It allows us to exist without pretending, without exaggerating, without hiding the parts of ourselves that are still growing. In that space, we remember what it feels like to be human, not perfect, not flawless, but real. And when someone loves you in that real and honest way, you begin to realize something deeply important. You begin to realize that having one genuine heart beside you is more valuable than having the entire world watching you from afar. Because the world may notice your achievements, but someone who loves you notices your humanity. The world may remember your successes, but someone who loves you remembers your story. The world may admire the image you present, but someone who loves you understands the person behind that image. And that understanding creates a bond that the world cannot replace. A bond built not on appearance, but on truth. A bond built not on admiration, but on connection. A bond built not on temporary excitement, but on lasting care. And when you experience that kind of bond, you realize that life was never meant to be a competition for the world's approval. Life is something much simpler. It is the journey of finding people who see your heart and value it. People who walk beside you through changing seasons, people who remind you through their presence that love is still one of the most powerful forces in the human experience, because in the end, when the noise of the world fades and the endless race slows down, what remains are the connections we built with other hearts, the quiet conversations, the shared laughter, the moments when someone looked at us and saw not just our strengths, but also our vulnerabilities and stayed anyway. Those moments become the true treasures of a life well lived, not the applause, not the fame, not the endless pursuit of recognition, but the simple, profound truth that somewhere in this vast and unpredictable world, there was a heart that beat with genuine care whenever it thought about you.